All right, let's talk about this because this whole Kelsey Mitchell situation is way bigger than one tweet. And a lot of people are reacting off emotion instead of really thinking it through. When a player who never talks suddenly decides to say something vague, that's when alarms go off. Kelsey Mitchell doesn't live on social media. She's not chasing attention. She's not doing podcasts. She's not tweeting every week. She plays basketball and keeps it moving. So when that person posts, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time, you already know this wasn't random. This wasn't a quote of the day moment. This was intentional, and that's why fans immediately connected it to everything that's been simmering all season. And let's be honest, this didn't come out of nowhere. The reason people jump straight to Caitlyn Clark is because that wound never healed. That we all we need comment from earlier in the season still sits wrong with a lot of fans, especially when she followed it up by pointing out Caitlyn wasn't there because she was hurt. You can argue intention all day, but perception matters. And to a lot of people, that sounded like minimizing Caitlyn's importance at a time when she physically couldn't help the team. That's why this tweet hit like gasoline on a fire. Fans didn't see a motivational quote. They saw unresolved tension bubbling back up. Now, here's where I think people are missing the bigger picture. This tweet doesn't read like someone attacking Caitlyn again. It reads like someone who feels done. Done explaining, done justifying, done pretending things are fine. And the timing matters. Kelsey Mitchell is a free agent. That changes everything. When a free agent posts something like this, fans are going to read between the lines, whether that's fair or not. And once people started commenting things like, "You're talking about yourself," or "Come to the dream, we'll treat you right," it turned from a personal statement into a full-blown roster conversation. What makes this even heavier is her silence after the tweet. No follow-up, no clarification. No, that's not what I meant. That silence tells you this wasn't an accident, and it forces everyone to revisit the past comments with a new lens. Is this regret? Is this frustration? Is this her saying she feels misunderstood? Or is this her quietly signaling that her chapter in Indiana might be closing? That's the tension here. And whether people like it or not, this moment was created by a mix of her words, her timing, and her status. And now, the pressure is officially on. Now, let's slow this down. Because the internet immediately jumped to extremes, and that's where the conversation starts to lose bounds. A lot of people are treating this tweet like it's a direct apology or a direct shot, and the truth is, it's neither. Kelsey Mitchell did not apologize. She didn't mention Caitlyn Clark. She didn't explain herself at all. And that's important, because reading meaning into silence can be just as misleading as ignoring context. What she did do is force everyone to reevaluate her past words, and that's where the pressure really comes from. When you go back to that press conference moment, the reason it bothered so many fans wasn't just the phrase, we need. On its own, that's a normal locker room mindset. Teams say that all the time when players are injured. The problem was the follow-up. The moment Caitlyn's name was brought into it, the tone changed. It stopped sounding like unity and started sounding like separation. Even if Kelsey didn't intend it that way, the optics were bad. And in sports, optics matter almost as much as results. Fans don't hear intention, they hear what lands. That's why this tweet reopened everything. People aren't mad because they want drama. They're mad because there was never any real closure. There was never a moment where Kelsey said, "That came out wrong," or "I respect what Caitlyn brings to this team." So when she posts something about believing people when they show you who they are, fans immediately ask, who was she talking about? The team? The fans? The front office? Or herself? And when there's no answer, speculation fills the gap. But here's the part that keeps getting ignored. Kelsey Mitchell has always communicated indirectly when she's frustrated. This isn't new behavior. Last year, she posted vague messages that also had people questioning her future. So this tweet fits a pattern. It doesn't scream apology. It screams exhaustion. It sounds like someone who feels boxed in by narratives that won't go away. That doesn't excuse past comments, but explains why she might choose ambiguity instead of confrontation. And the free agency angle makes everything heavier. If Kelsey was locked into a long-term deal, this tweet probably wouldn't hit the same. But when a player who might be leading posts something like this, fans automatically treat it like a farewell note. That's not unfair, but it's also not proof. Right now, all we actually know is this. She said one sentence, stayed silent, and let the basketball world react. And whether she meant to or not, that silence has turned pressure into expectation, and expectation into scrutiny. This is where the conversation really shifts from social media drama to basketball reality. Because no matter how emotional this gets, Kelsey Mitchell's value on the court is the reason this matters at all. If she was a role player, this would have blown over in a day, but she's not. She's been one of the few consistent scoring threats Indiana has had for years, and that gives her words weight, whether she wants them to or not. Fans aren't just reacting to a tweet, they're reacting to the idea of losing a proven bucket getter at a time when the franchise is trying to build stability. That's also why some of the criticism feels misplaced. People are acting like this one tweet erases everything she's done or proves she's some kind of villain in the locker room. That's not fair, and it's not supported by facts. We don't have reports of teammates hating her. We don't have stories of internal blowups. What we do have is a player who has carried a heavy offensive load, dealt with losing seasons, and now finds herself sharing the spotlight with the most talked about rookie in the league. That adjustment isn't simple, especially for someone who isn't used to explaining herself publicly. At the same time, this is where accountability comes in. Being frustrated doesn't give you a free pass to be careless with your words. When you're a leader, intentional or not, your comments shape narratives. That "we all we got" moment may have been meant to lift the team, but the way it landed created division in the eyes of fans. And once that perception exists, every future move gets filtered through it. This tweet didn't create that problem. It reminded everyone it was still unresolved. The media coverage proves this isn't just fans overreacting. Articles are being written about her post. Headlines are framing it as a signal about her future. That doesn't happen unless there's already smoke. Her decision to post the same message on both X and Instagram tells you she wasn't whispering. She wanted to be heard, even if she didn't want to explain. That's a calculated move, and it suggests this is tied to basketball, not some random personal issue. So now she's in a tough spot. If she says nothing, the narrative grows without her. If she speaks, every word will be dissected. And if she leaves Indiana, this tweet will be treated like the first domino. That's the reality of being a star. You don't just play the game, you live inside the conversation. And right now, that conversation isn't really about Caitlyn anymore. It's about whether Kelsey Mitchell wants to be part of what Indiana is becoming, or whether she believes it's time to walk away. Now let's talk about the silence, because honestly, that's doing more damage than the tweet itself. When something like this blows up and a player says nothing afterward, fans don't read that as calm. They read it as confirmation that something is wrong. And in today's WNBA environment, where every move is magnified, silence isn't neutral. It becomes part of the story. Kelsey Mitchell hasn't clarified, hasn't pushed back on any interpretations, and hasn't acknowledged the Caitlyn Clark angle at all. That leaves a vacuum, and the internet will always fill a vacuum with the loudest assumptions. What makes the situation uncomfortable is that people are trying to force this into a clean narrative, and real life doesn't work that way. Some fans want this tweet to be an apology, others want it to be a breakup letter to Indiana, and some are convinced she's calling out the fan base or the media. The truth might be none of those things. It might simply be a moment of frustration from someone who feels misunderstood, boxed in, and tired of having her words replayed over and over without context. But when you're a public figure, especially a professional athlete, intention doesn't stop interpretation. This is also where the Caitlyn Clark factor keeps hanging over everything. Caitlyn didn't say anything. She didn't respond. She didn't add fuel. And that contrast matters. One player stayed quiet and let her play speak. The other broke a long silence with a vague message. That difference shapes perception, fairly or unfairly. Fans naturally gravitate toward clarity, and Caitlyn's absence from the drama only makes Kelsey's actions feel louder. That doesn't mean Kelsey is wrong. It means the comparison exists, and comparisons drive narrative. There's also the reality that Indiana is at a crossroads. The Fever are trying to build something new, something stable, and moments like this test that direction. Veterans are expected to help set the tone, especially when younger stars are coming in. When that tone feels uncertain, fans start asking hard questions about leadership, fit, and future roles. That's why this tweet feels heavier than it should. It landed at the exact moment when the franchise is trying to define its identity. And this is where Kelsey Mitchell's next move really matters. Not on social media, but in how she handles the situation going forward. Does she clear the air? Does she let time pass and focus on basketball? Or does she quietly move on and let everyone draw their own conclusions? None of those options are easy, but all of them come with consequence. Right now, the pressure isn't coming from one sentence she posted. It's coming from everything that sentence reactivated. And this is why the conversation ends up right back where it started, with accountability and clarity, not outrage. No matter how you feel about Kelsey Mitchell, this moment is now attached to her career arc. That's just reality. This tweet didn't happen in a vacuum, and it didn't land on a blank slate. It landed on top of months of tension, unfinished conversations, and a fan base that already felt uneasy about chemistry and direction. That's why people aren't letting it go. They're not demanding perfection. They're demanding understanding. What's being missed by a lot of fans and media is that this doesn't have to be a villain story or a redemption story. It can simply be a crossroads. Kelsey Mitchell can both be a talented scorer who has given years to the Fever and a player who mishandled moments of communication. Those things can coexist. The problem is that without her addressing it, the loudest voices get to decide what the story is. And once that story hardens, it's very hard to rewrite. If this tweet was meant as an indirect apology, it missed the mark because ambiguity doesn't heal wounds. If it was meant as a personal reflection, it still carries professional consequences because of who she is and when she said it. And if it was meant as a signal about her future, then the Fever and their fans deserve honesty sooner rather than later. None of that requires drama. It requires ownership. One clear statement could settle most of this overnight. The longer it drags, the more damage it does to trust. At the same time, fans also need to be fair. Reading every word as an attack on Caitlyn Clark ignores the reality that teams are complicated and emotions run high during long, losing seasons. Caitlyn is a centerpiece now, and with that comes attention, pressure, and comparison. But that doesn't automatically make every teammate's frustration about her. Sometimes it's about roles changing, expectations shifting, and a veteran trying to find her place in a new version of a franchise she's known for years. So this is where we are. One sentence, no clarification, a free agent off-season, and a fan base waiting. Whether Kelsey Mitchell stays in Indiana or moves on, this moment will follow her unless she defines it herself. And the real question isn't whether fans are overreacting or defending the wrong side. The real question is simple, and it's the one that decides everything going forward. Does Kelsey Mitchell owe the Fever and their fans clarity, or is silence her final statement?